Everybody should be doing this. You don't have to wait till you're sick. Get your autonomic nervous system up off the couch and everything else works better.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Remington Ramsey, creator of Real Producers, and today my guest is Doug Steiny out there in Carmel, California. Carmel is what you guys call it out there. I'm coming from Carmel, Indiana, and people who come from California often pronounce it Carmel, even though they're spelled the same. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I find it when I Google stuff, it comes up a lot. So I have to make sure Carmel, California, not Indiana.
Yeah, but that would be a rude awakening for someone trying to get some California sun in certain months of the year.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful out right now. We're right on the coast, so we do get that marine layer, but it's about 74 with a slight coastal breeze today, kind of heavenly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that in February when it's 0 degrees here, but today it's 90 degrees and you guys are just constant. So what do you love about living in Carmel?
I'm from here. I'm at a very unusual 5th generation from this area. My great-great-grandfather bought a tent site on Lovers Point in Pacific Grove in 1868.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so my family's been here a long time, so I'm spoiled rotten. But honestly, I've heard from many people that can do anything they want, say that this is the highest quality of living they could find on the planet.
Man.
Yeah. So that's a pretty strong statement. They don't let me out much. I'm in real estate, so.
That's a good place to sell real estate. And we'll get into that.
I always told my dad, hey, Dad, you know what? For whatever makes you mistakes you may have made, you made up for all of it by having me be born here, because this place is awesome.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have gotten the most out of it, selling a lot of real estate out there, working with some really cool clients like Clint Eastwood, Doris Day, Barbra Streisand, and some other cool ones. But what I want to start with, Doug, is your story and your journey through health and wellness, which is kind of a big thing that you tour all over the country and in different countries talking about. So before you became a successful realtor, or maybe during actually, you had this life-altering event with your health. Can you describe what that was like?
Yeah, actually, no, I've been a realtor. I've been a realtor for almost 40 years now. And it was 9 years ago, almost to the week. So I've been a realtor for quite some time. My wife is my partner. We're a husband and wife team. We're the #1 agent in Sotheby's in Monterey County. Work really hard. And she was diagnosed with aggressive lymphoma. And we had kids late. So our daughter was 9 and our son was 15, and just really difficult. Now she's home and I'm picking up the slack, but it's stressful. And so that's really hard on your immune system. So my son brought home whooping cough from middle school and shared it with me, which in and of itself just means you're going to cough for 3 months and feel that it's not necessarily deadly, but it can be, especially if you're going through chemo. So we had to quarantine her, and just really tough. But unbeknownst to me, the compromised immune system and the infection were like a train wreck. My body, just completely revolted.
Can I pause you for a second and ask you real quick about when you say quarantine her, what did that actually look like? Was she completely alone? Did you guys have any contact?
We put her in she basically hung out in the master bedroom, which has a deck and patio. And so we kind of it was, like food on the table. And yeah, it was pretty weird and pretty awkward and very uncomfortable. And she's tired and scared and lonely, and we're worried, and I'm sick. And it was the pits.
That's rough.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, I was a doctor friend of mine told me it was Easter in 2014, and he said, Doug, I got to tell you that caretakers can often get as sick or sicker than the people they're taking care of, and you don't look good at all.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, thanks, Ron. And I said, but I got whooping cough. I'm exhausted. I've lost like 15 pounds. I'm worn out.
Yeah.
And he said, well, just take care. And I really had no, sort of concept of what take care looks like. So I met him the next week. Ironically, he just said, we're going to have a real estate conversation at a house he owns. Should we rent it, keep it, remodel it, sell it? Just a typical thing. And I was walking down a set of stairs and had the slightest, wasn't a stumble, just kind of a little quirk, and he says, what was that? And I said, nothing, Ron. I'm just worn out, man. And he goes, come over here and stand toe to toe and stand on my toes. And I had the slightest tremble. And he said, you're going to the ER. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm going to the garden show. I'm picking roses on a half hour. I'm not going to the garden show. I'm going to the ER. He ignores me, gets in his car, drives. I'll be there in 45 minutes. He checked in, drives away.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went up there and checked in, and they said, why are you here? I said, because Dr. Guerin told me to come in here. They said, okay, sign this and sit down. So I did. And about an hour and a half later, this guy comes out with a clipboard and says, Steiny, Doug. And I stood up and fell on my face.
Oh, man.
And they put me in a wheelchair and said, well, you're not going anywhere. So they wheeled. That was 5:00 on a Friday, 8:00 MRI, 11:00, another MRI with radioactive dye, 2:30 in the morning, spinal tap. By 5:00 the next morning, I'm paralyzed. I can't move.
Man, the timing of this is crazy.
Well, they were connected because of the, what I know now about how, and this is just so critical, and why I love to share this. What I've learned is there's no creature on the planet that can live in what's called the sympathetic or the fight or flight mode chronically and survive. It'll eventually kill you. Maybe a long, slow death, but diabetes or psoriasis or however it manifests for you, heart disease, all those things, you will wear out and die.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I was headed, unbeknownst to me. I didn't know anything about any of these things. And so, what had happened is I'd gotten a rare autoimmune disorder. The compromised immune system and the infection from the whooping cough short-circuited everything, and my body started attacking itself like MS. It eats the myelin sheath off your nerves, which is like the insulation on a wire. And it starts in your extremities, goes to your core, shuts off your organs, and you die. And it's in my hips and my shoulders in 12 hours. And so
that tremor that you had was the only indication, or was it skin color, or it was just that tremor?
No. I would imagine, I just generally didn't look like good old Doug, but that was the thing that, he just said, you're going right now. And
wow.
Can you imagine? Thank God. Otherwise, because there's no cure for this disease, but what they can do is put you on sort of a dialysis, like a blood plasma and hemoglobin, and sort of wash the white blood cells that are eating you alive. Yeah. And sort of filter them, but you can only do that for 36 hours. And then you kind of get what you get. And then, they did, and, I could move my head a little bit, not my arms or legs, and my body I could feel. So I wasn't in danger of having my lungs shut down because they caught it like a total miracle in time. But the problem is there's no way to cure it. There's no way to make it better. There's nothing you can do.
And they told you this immediately? They said there's nothing you can do?
Yeah. So the next morning, my wife comes in, she's got a wig on, black circles under her eyes, 4 months into a 6-month chemo, really aggressive. And they say, look, here's the deal. you have a 50-50 chance of permanent paralysis. But if you get better, it's going to be 1.5 to 2 years. So basically, I'll see you in 2 years and see how you're doing. And that literally, that's it. There's nothing you can do.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of a dark morning.
Yeah.
So what happened is, after a few weeks, they sent me home. And so I was just laying on the couch, Lisa's trying to take care of me, but I still had whooping cough. And oh man, it was
How long had you had at that point? How long had you had whooping cough?
probably a couple months by that time. So I was in the tail end of it, but we had to be careful.
Is that how long it lasts?
3 months. The Chinese call it the 100-day cough.
Huh.
Yeah, that's the thing about whooping cough. It's not super. It's just really you just have a chest and sinus head and just a infection, and it's just seems like it never wants to go away.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable, but it's not like deadly. It's just miserable. But in either one of our cases, it now could manifest into all kinds of creepy things. So
you're sick. You're not in a good mental space, I'm guessing. Being told all this, you're in the whole reason you got here is because you were taking some care of someone else who's still not out of the woods yet. So, right. We're in it now, and so you're on the couch. What happened next?
Well, it actually, my journey really started while I was still in the hospital, because what happened was about 3 days after I was there, they let my 9-year-old daughter come in, and she, she's this little round-faced, blue-eyed, dimpled angel, and just loves her dad. And of course, she's been going through this with her mom and now her dad, and she had big tears. It's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To see her suffering and scared like that. And so she came in and she's like, "Oh my God, Daddy, are you going to be okay?" And I couldn't even hug her. And I said, "Yes, sweetheart, Daddy's going to be okay." And then, sorry, this part always gets me. She came over and she held my hand and she looked me straight in the eye. And she said, "But Daddy, you have to promise me, because I know you'll never break a promise to me." And I did. I promised her. And, in retrospect, that's where I think everything sort of started, this amazing journey that I've been blessed with. Because what I found was, as I was sitting on that couch for Remington, months, not weeks, not days, months and months, thinking, how could I have not thought, God, what if I don't get better? Yeah. It's somewhat time, the toughest guy in the world is going to start to, man, I don't let those thoughts creep in. It never entered my mind. Which I think in retrospect is sort of amazing. And then now I understand why, is because when I promised my daughter, something in my psyche, changed, and it was powerful enough to literally, keep me on track. Now, it didn't get better for quite some time, but about 5 or so, I wasn't looking at timing because I just had no reason to, but I mean, about 5 months or so into this journey, my 15-year-old son comes bopping out of his room, fiddling around with his buddies. Dad, there's this guy, and he does all this stuff, and his immune system's so strong he can't get sick. Now, that's not exactly true, although
that was his interpretation. Where did he find this guy on YouTube or something? Yeah.
Okay. And it was Wim Hof. And for those who don't know, Wim Hof is a Dutch They call him a daredevil, but he's a close personal friend of mine, and he's not a daredevil. He's just he has very little boundaries. He is unbounding energy, super curious, and just literally won't take no for an answer under any conditions. He said, well, you can't do this and this will happen. And no, I don't think so. No. Mm-mm. And he literally does Whim's World. And subsequently, they've rewritten medical science since 2014 based on his protocol. It's so powerful and so amazing.
And the basis, and I haven't done much research on this myself, except for what you've said here. But am I interpreting right? Where it's a lot of mental, like willing these things to happen based on belief.
It's a little more practical than that, which is good for me because I'm not a real voodoo kind of whoa man. I want to see the science, which I think that's a big audience. But sure. It's a protocol of deep breathing, mindset focus, and exposure to cold. And what that does is that addresses your autonomic nervous system. And your autonomic nervous system is everything that works without thinking.
Okay.
So that's respiratory, circulatory, nervous, and endocrine, your hormones and enzymes.
Okay.
So you're breathing right now about 0.5% carbon dioxide, 28% oxygen, and the rest nitrogen.
Okay.
Every cell in your body gets its energy from one place and one place only, oxygen, period. So if you're not breathing properly and the cells aren't getting what they need, your entire, what I call your body as your personal universe, is burdened. Alternatively, if you're hacking that breathing system and really energizing those cells and keeping your pH up and thickening your cell walls, and all those cells they're a bunch of Arnold Schwarzeneggers, everything else starts to work really well, which is, people tell you, as you get older, all this stuff starts to happen. And I'm here to tell you that's because you're not using it. You're not stressing it. And so why
is that? Why do we, so for generations, we've blamed getting older on these things. And so then we just start believing that. And instead of proactively start to use the things we aren't using, we just make excuses for ourselves. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that that's what happens. But did you ever show up for, football practice in high school or whatever sports, and the coach says, okay, everybody line up here. We're going to stress our autonomic nervous systems today and really start working on our sympathetic and parasympathetic controls. Huh?
Yeah.
It's
not in the 90s.
No, it's not even a subject, which is just amazing to me now that I know what I know.
Right.
So if you think about it, okay, so you take a breath, respiratory, delivers it to circulatory, nervous system sends it to the cell. The mitochondria in the cell are remember that from science, powerhouse of the cell?
Yeah.
Take that 0.5, 0.5%, it's actually a little bit less, like 0.47 of carbon dioxide, and it converts the oxygen to energy. Because if you put one of those little things on your finger and just went, you'd have 100% oxygen in blood in less than 2 minutes, probably less than 1 minute. But that's oxygen in your blood. That doesn't help you. You need to get oxygen to your cell converted to energy. And that's a second process. So when you need to take a breath, like when you're remember you're a kid and you go, okay, I can hold my breath longer than you, and you put and you go underwater.
Yeah.
And you blow out a little bit. You're blowing out the carbon dioxide buildup, and you can hold longer. Because if your body or your personal universe, which is way smarter than any doctors or anybody we know, if it waited till you ran out of oxygen, you'd be unconscious. You'd be out. You would have been gone a long time ago. So as that carbon dioxide builds up, that means you're not blowing out. So you must not be blowing in. So I need to take a breath. So what happens is oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. So so for you to breathe properly, your body cavity needs to be aligned over your pelvic bowl. As soon as you sit down, not happening. But this system all works autonomically, and it's so adaptable. It's the most adaptable. Like you can have guys running across, the safari barefoot at 110, go run 50 miles, and guys living in igloos, at 25 below, that, and same humans. So
let me interrupt you for a second. So this is, I'm guessing this was one of the videos that you're watching. Your son comes out, presents you with this ideology, and right. you start to watch it. And by the way, like, I can't open a social media app without being bombarded by cold remedies now, cold ice baths, and yes. all the ramifications, all the excitement, like it's like a hot product right now. Yeah. And so you're watching, you're reading about this. What happens when you start to, you're immediately excited about this? Are you skeptical? What happened?
All of the above. Little side note to probably most of the people out there, just so you know, nobody hated cold more than me.
Well, yeah, we started off by talking about your ideal weather out there in Carmel.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, if we're taking some time off, it's not Tahoe, it's Palm Springs. Yeah, we were talking, but I didn't understand the cold. I just thought cold was just cold.
Yeah. And
so I didn't look at it as something more like CrossFit for my nervous system. So, he showed me the Wim Hof thing, and he had a 10-week course. And he was basically saying, Dad, please try something. Please try this. You got to get better. So that's very motivating. So yeah. We got the 10-week course, and then I started the breathing protocol. And as soon as I did that, I knew something was changing. I could just tell. I could think clearer. I just felt different, like something was happening. So I was, breathing a lot, several times a day, going through the whole protocol. And within, a few weeks, they were getting, they're helping me. I still couldn't stand up or anything or move very well, and get me in the cold. And within less than 3 months, I was symptom-free, which was
nuts.
Oh, amazing. I have had hundreds of people with stories like that now, with rheumatoid issues, psoriasis, really bad psoriasis, all kinds of stuff that has gone away, sinus issues, asthma, all kinds of stuff where your body's basically attacking itself. And so
it makes you wonder, I think all the time about those stats that you hear about, like cancer in the US versus cancer in Europe, and why the food that we're intaking and the things that we're doing, the pollution, all that contribute to what we are exposed to as humans here in America, and why we have different sicknesses. And we keep coming up with these different cures that are for things that we've done to ourselves, because they're not, but every decade, every century, I feel like there's new problems and new solutions to those problems. But then you talk about Wim Hof, which is essentially this program, this process, this way of thinking, and the things that you're doing with breathing and with cold therapy. Has that always worked since the beginning of man, or is it something that's new? Like those are the questions I have for why are we just now discovering that, or do we just know it before and we just stopped doing it?
All of the above. So do you know, have you take note, Andrew Huberman, Huberman, do you know him?
I don't.
Yeah. You want to get on, listen to his stuff. He is a neurobiologist at Stanford, and he's done most of the clinical studies and he co-authors them with Susan Soberg, who's a Danish scientist, doctor, most of the cold and heat studies. And they just came out with a statement. It's probably been 6 months now. And he says they have strong clinical evidence now that if you sauna 30 minutes 3 times a week, which most people, that sounds good to me, I'll sign up for that.
Yeah.
And you do 12 minutes of cold exposure per week. So what that means is full exposure up to your neck, 57 degrees or below. 57. And the reason for that is that's what it takes for your circulatory system to shunt. And I'll explain that in a second.
What's the degree? Is it like 58 degrees for your like normal home water that's like coming out of a hose?
Yeah, that's maybe not this time of year, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but this is, so showers are a little less impactful. Water is 20 times more conductive than air. So showers are, part air, part water.
Right.
So if you get in a cold tub or tank,
do cold showers do anything, or am I just making?
Oh no, absolutely. That's how I did that. I did that for 6 weeks.
The transition, like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. It was, believe me, I mean, I swim in the ocean. It's 52 degrees for an hour, 2 or 3 times a week now. And it doesn't. Man. But please, you got to understand, that was a journey.
Yeah. To get there. When you say 12 minutes, is that 12 minutes at once? Like you can't break it up?
You do. He wants you to break it up 3 minutes, 4 times a week, 4 minutes, 3 times a week.
Wow.
Some version of that. You can if you do those 2 things, you can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50%.
Man.
I mean, if I had a pill and just said that same statement, you'd be looking at the new Elon Musk. I mean, heart disease is still the number 1 killer by far.
Yeah.
And causes so much misery. It's unbelievable. Well, so let me back up and get to explain to you the way I look at the autonomic nervous system. So if every cell in your body gets its energy from one place and one place only, oxygen, how important is that? And it's like, if you're, say, lifting weights or running or doing whatever you're doing, and those cells aren't oxygenating and your pH is low and you're running in a burdened environment, how are you going to do? I mean, obviously it's going to struggle. And so I look at it like this: is if you got hurt and laid on the couch for a month, let's say you broke your leg or got sick or whatever it is, and you stood up, you'd be so weak you could hardly stand up. One lap around the couch, fall over, feel like you just ran a marathon.
Maybe sounds like COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Any one of those versions. And so, 2 or 3 days later, you maybe get to the end of the driveway and back, and so it goes. And when you stress the systems in your personal universe, they adapt and get stronger. It's
just like lifting weights.
Exactly, or running, or anything you do, right? Why is this system any different?
Yeah.
It's not. That's why. So you have, ready for this? You have 65,000 miles of circulatory system in your body.
Wow.
The Earth is 8,000 miles in diameter. So grasp that concept? You have capillaries that are so small that red blood cells have to go single file to get through them. That's 65,000 miles of microscopic smooth muscles. And they're laying on the couch. And they deliver everything that's important to every cell in your body. Now, so what happens is when you get in that water that's 57 degrees or below for more than 2 minutes, your body reacts and it does what's called a shunt. And it says, oh my God, that dumb idiot is jumping. Oh, we got to, you're not going to make it. So the circulatory system in your extremities contracts, and your core and your brain, it expands, and it pushes the warm blood into your core and your brain. And by constricting the circulatory system in your extremities, it slows the amount of cold water, cold blood that goes to your core. So that's how smart your personal universe is. Boom. And it happens within 60 to 90 seconds. And so when you do that, that's now like CrossFit for your circulatory system. So it's getting up off the couch, and all of a sudden, all kinds of cool stuff starts happening. So the cold water, besides your circulatory system, and this is where this whole stress thing comes in. Let's go back to this, and it's just short, so don't get scared.
We are wrapping up here, so yeah.
Yeah, respiratory, circulatory, nervous, endocrine. Those are 4 very distinct functions. One system.
Yep.
Because if you're not breathing, the rest of them aren't going to help you.
Right.
So circulatory, right? They all work automatically without thinking. You have no control over them, with one exception. You can always override your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the magic happens. So when you get in the cold, your nervous system is going to say, get out, get out, get out. And you're going to get in that water, and you're going to be, right? And it's trying to make you panic to get out.
Mm.
But you know that, right? Mindset, focus. Okay. So before you get in, you're
preparing yourself to breathe.
Right. In through your nose, out through your mouth.
Why in through your nose? I've been told that over and over again, especially with sprinting and running, and I hate it. I can't do it. I just give up. I don't do it. Why do we do that? Why do we breathe in through our nose?
When you breathe in through your nose, all kinds of cool stuff happens. Like nitric oxide, remember the miracle molecule and all that? It goes up like 265% versus breathing through your mouth. But also you're stressing and activating your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight. And
you're not doing that through your mouth.
Correct. But when you breathe out through your mouth, you're stimulating your parasympathetic, your rest or recovery. So when you hop in that water, boom, you're sympathetic. So in through your nose, you stimulate that, and then twice as long out.
Okay.
And all of a sudden you get calm, you calm down. And now what's happening though, is you're now training this nervous system instead of it training you. And this
taking control through your breathing. Exactly.
And the more you do it, it's like getting up off the couch when you're going into that meeting, you're calling that person, it's a meeting, whatever it is. All of a sudden you've developed that strength and that skill, and it levels you out. And, it's just really an amazing process.
Just in the last 5 minutes of talking about this, I've been like breathing, like trying to like get my breath. I'm very aware of my breathing. I just know anyone listening to this in their car, just like, are out of breath, just thinking about this. But this is something that you're obviously very passionate about, Doug. And for time, I want to pause for a second and just skip ahead to like the end of this story. You're now going to be 70 next year. You can do the splits. You deadlift 300 pounds, and all because of Wim Hof. And I'm just wondering, like, this is now what you are passionate about besides real estate, which, you're a monster at real estate, number one. How can people find you? And for those struggling right now with anything remotely related to what you are struggling with, what is their first step to this type of wellness?
Okay, so you can go on Wim Hof's website and then go under the instructors page and find the closest instructor to you. You can always, if you Google Doug Steiny, Wim Hof, Doug Steiny, Sotheby's, I'm everywhere.
Yeah, you're easy to find.
Yeah. And love to talk about it. So here's the thing, Remington, everybody should be doing this. You don't have to wait till you're sick. Get your autonomic nervous system up off the couch and everything else works better. I mean, it's if you think about it, you didn't know until you heard this, and you can't unwind it. There's a whole system that runs all this stuff that you're being lazy about now. And it's not you. I'm not shaking my finger. I didn't know it almost killed me. but now I do know it. And and when I say all those things about, I like to inspire and motivate people. Like I swam Alcatraz. I don't know if you know that swim or not, but I swam that in February with my son, board shorts only, just jumped off the island, swam to Fort Mason. It was 49, it was 49 degrees. I had a special license.
Yeah. I've been in that. So I'm a slalom skier and I get in the water as soon as they let me, I get in there. But I think 50s is as cold as I've gone on that. So 40, I mean, that's like literally ice out there. I'm sure it felt like.
Yeah. For an hour and a half. Yeah.
We are out of time for this particular one. I would love to do a part 2 with you because there's so much we didn't get to, but this story is fascinating. And this success that you've seen in your own health and wellness and what you're doing for other people is just admirable. Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Happy to help. Stay healthy, happy, and strong.
This has been part 1 of what I hope will be parts 1, 2, 3, however many it takes to share the whole story of Mr. Doug Steiny. If you have any questions about Real Producers or want to get involved, go to realproducersmag.com. We will see you next time.
Signing off. See you, Remington. Keep the faith. Happy to see you on podcast 2.